Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, December 17th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Confusion is now leading to celebration tonight for all restaurants around the county. More on that developing story in a moment, but first, sadly, 22 more deaths and just over 2,600 new COVID cases just reported by county health officials. Meantime, a new court ruling is now bringing about a major change when it comes to restrictions and reopening. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer explains.
Just Wednesday, outdoor dining wasn't an option, but plans quickly changed overnight.
It's been a roller coaster ride trying to get everybody back. Last night, when we got the word, the judge's ruling, when we were going to open, we're scrambling, calling all of the employees back to see who wanted to come back.
Wednesday evening, San Diego Superior Court Judge Joel Wofail ruled that 2 strip clubs, Pacers and Cheetahs, could remain open and operate despite the most recent COVID-19 shutdown orders from the state. The ruling appeared to extend to the county's ailing restaurant industry and allowed those businesses to reopen to some extent. Then, Thursday afternoon, Wofail clarified his position.
But the court's intention is that all businesses which provide restaurant service, meaning all restaurants in the County of San Diego, are encompassed within the scope of the court's order. It's not limited to plaintiffs who also provide restaurant service, but it is intended to encompass all restaurants within the County of San Diego.
San Diego attorney Dan Eaton says that the ruling could have larger implications.
Other strip clubs or restaurants in other parts of the state may very well try to use this ruling, although it's not binding precedent, also to seek to have restrictions loosened.
For Alex Navarrete, those loosened restrictions come as good news.
Everybody's very excited. Our patrons are excited. Our employees especially, glad to get them back, especially through these hard times that people want to work. And since the uncertainty right now with the politics, trying to get the unemployment for the employees just so they can have a somewhat normal Christmas.
Businesses still have to follow COVID-19 safety practices based off of the state's tiered system, such as physical distancing and mask wearing. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria just issued a statement saying the city is working closely with the county and state to determine the implications of the ruling. Gloria says while no one wants our small businesses to close, the science shows a trend in hospitalizations and deaths. Evidence of that today, ICU capacity in the Southern California region dropped to 0%. That doesn't necessarily mean there are no beds available. The state adjusts the percentage down if counties have a higher than expected number of coronavirus patients in the ICU. Still, California reported 52,000 new cases and record 379 deaths today. While the vaccine is rolling out, offering some hope, doctors are warning against gathering over the holidays.
And I understand wanting to do that, but we have Christmas and New Year's right around the corner. Currently, our ICUs are very full, and we are worried as healthcare organizations that we may not have the resources to help take care of you if we do the same thing in the next 2 holidays. So one more holiday season, please do what we're asking you to do so that we can all celebrate together next year.
Today, Scripps Health was the latest local hospital to start vaccinating its staff with the Pfizer vaccine. The first person to receive it was a housekeeper at Scripps Mercy Hospital, Chula Vista. The second COVID vaccine could be available in the U.S. very soon. Today, advisors to the Food and Drug Administration endorsed Moderna's shot. The FDA says it expects the emergency use authorization process to be faster than it was for the Pfizer vaccine last week. Both vaccines use a new approach involving genetic material. They both show to be about 95% effective in preventing the virus, and they have both been tested on tens of thousands of volunteers. Many teachers are hoping to receive the COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible to start undoing the damage the pandemic has done to students. But as KPBS education reporter Joe Hong explains, vaccinated teachers won't necessarily mean mass school reopenings.
Teachers union leaders across the state say that educators should be behind frontline healthcare workers and nursing home residents in the line to receive the vaccine. But there are other factors to consider before schools can fully reopen.
I think it is a very complicated issue.
Keisha Borden is the president of the teachers union at San Diego Unified School District.
Even with that available vaccine, we want schools to continue to reopen in a way that slows the spread and is safe. And we would ask, again, as we've been asking all along, that families continue to wear their masks and help the community spread slow down.
The California Teachers Association agrees with the state's proposed priorities for vaccinations, but it remains unclear when students will start to be vaccinated. And until they are, teachers say there's still the risk of spread on campuses. Richard Brewer is the vice president of San Diego Unified School Board.
Children have yet to be included in the vaccine trials. And so it could be some time, certainly later in the year before we have vaccines that are approved to be given to our students.
And while some teachers are eager to get the vaccine, others might choose not to be vaccinated.
My biggest question that nobody has an answer for: will it be mandated?
Julie Walker is the president of the teachers union at Sweetwater Union High School District.
There will be members that cannot get vaccinated. Allergies or very strong religious beliefs. And that's where we really need to come up with alternatives for those members.
According to federal and state guidelines, healthcare workers are not currently required to receive the vaccine. Once teachers know when they can expect to be vaccinated, Walker and Borden say they'll negotiate with their districts to ensure teachers can start in-person instruction with all the necessary precautions. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
Schools across the state and county are struggling over in-person and online learning. Tonight, Poway Unified will vote to finalize a plan to suspend in-person learning for all students for 2 weeks from January 4th through the 15th. All students will learn from home during that period. The decision is to help minimize the spread of illnesses, especially as county-wide COVID cases skyrocket. The district says they have no evidence, however, of outbreaks on any of their campuses. Capitol Hill leaders say they are getting closer to a much-needed COVID relief package. They're trying to strike a deal before existing lifelines expire in the coming days. While navigating a deadline to avert a government shutdown tomorrow night, Karen Kaifa has the latest from Washington.
Faced with two urgent tasks, fund the government past midnight on Friday and extend COVID-19 relief set to expire by year's end, it is crunch time on Capitol Hill. But they may need more time on the clock.
We're going to stay right here, until we're finished, even if that means working through the weekend, which is highly likely.
The number of those in need of help is rising. The Labor Department said 885,000 Americans filed for unemployment for the first time last week.
We're still down 10 million jobs from where we were in February pre-pandemic. And half of those jobs are people who say that they have permanently lost their. That's a lot of pain, financial pain and suffering.
First of all, both parties seem to recognize the urgency.
We have a responsibility to get this right. People's lives depend upon it.
But the sticking point's the same as they've been for months. A $900 billion package under discussion could include an extension of enhanced unemployment benefits, money for small businesses, and another round of direct payments to Americans. But some Republicans say the bill's price tag is too high, and progressive Democrats want larger stimulus checks. Still, they say they're getting closer.
I can guarantee that we'll get a deal done. I can't guarantee how soon that's going to be.
In Washington, Karen Kaifa, KPBS News.
We have an update for you tonight on a story we first brought you in October. A former caregiver was arrested and charged this week for allegedly sexually assaulting 3 elderly women at 3 local nursing homes. El Cajon police arrested ex-caregiver Matthew Flukiger 18 months after he was accused of sexually assaulting a 71-year-old woman at Avocado Post Acute Nursing Home. The San Diego County District Attorney's Office has charged him with 1 count of forcible lewd and lascivious conduct on an adult by a caretaker. He also faces similar charges involving 2 other women at other nursing homes. San Diego officials today unveiled a single bid for a contract to provide the city with gas and electricity. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says millions of dollars in city revenues are at stake.
City officials opened up the loan bid in a special city council meeting. The bid came from the existing utility, SDG&E, and it offered the bare minimum allowed, $80 million for a 20-year contract. Under the existing deal, which expires in 1 month, SDG&E pays the city fees in exchange for the right to keep its power and gas lines on public land. City officials now have some tough choices. Do they take the offer as is? Do they cancel the bidding process and start it over with new requirements? Or do they try and create a public utility? City Councilmember Sean Elo Rivera says the city should try to negotiate a better agreement.
We cannot commit to a bad deal simply because we are in an economic crisis in this moment. This will impact us for decades after the city recovers from the current downturn.
Mayor Todd Gloria's office says it is likely to ask for an extension of the current contract with SDG&E to relieve some time pressure and better evaluate the best path forward. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The Trump administration plans to cut $200 million in federal Medicaid funding to California because the state requires insurance providers to cover abortions. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says it will trim another $200 million per fiscal quarter if the state fails to come into compliance. The Trump administration had threatened to cut funding over the law earlier this year. Critics charge the administration is putting politics before people. Coronavirus-related job cuts have been impacting Americans for most of this year. In tourist locations like Orlando, local economies are seeing cascading layoffs. Tourists aren't there to buy food or book hotels, causing still more job cuts. Natasha Chen reports.
You want to show your favorite ornament?
Amanda Johnson and her husband made a living creating magic, but their fairy tale ended when they were furloughed from the Walt Disney World Resort. Months later, even after Florida parks reopened, Johnson was laid off, one of 32,000 U.S. Disney employees expected to lose their jobs by March.
I feel like drowning here, and it's just the worst thing. People come here to have a good time, and we're all suffering.
One of their 3 children has autism and epilepsy.
Thinking about like one hospital visit would almost like bankrupt you.
She says she's making food deliveries just to be able to give the kids a Christmas, and soon they'll be hard-pressed to pay the mortgage.
What do you want for Christmas?
Former employees of Disney, Universal, SeaWorld, and others are on both sides of this line, receiving donations and volunteering, too.
We were focused on the members, and we started out feeding 200 families, and it ballooned into 2,000.
These artists who used to perform for theme park guests are now entertaining each other.
Last Christmas.
And cheering up is a necessity when these boxes represent less than 10% of the food that used to be available, according to the Society of St. Andrew. Farmers they work with had funding from the federal Farm to Families program to get fresh food into boxes and delivered to food banks. But that money ran out sooner than expected.
What keeps me up at night is that child that will go to bed hungry.
In an area whose lifeblood is tourism, the trickle-down effect on other jobs is apparent, as motels are now filled not with out-of-towners, but with the unemployed, like Jose Cruz, who lost his job at Home Depot.
The majority of people do work in these theme parks, and if they're not buying appliances and they're not buying things from Home Depot, then I don't have a job to deliver anything to these people.
Theme parks may be suffering, but the success of Disney's streaming service, Disney Plus, has sent Disney stock to its all-time high. Meanwhile, for park employees,
that's where my Disney journey ends for now.
They echo Disney CEO Bob Chapek's optimism around the vaccine, hoping guests and work will one day return like magic. Natasha Chen, CNN, Orlando, Florida.
Just ahead of the holidays, local organizations came together to make the season a little brighter for families in need. The San Diego Imperial Labor Council and United Way held a drive-through food and toy drive outside Petco Park just this morning. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria helped with the giveaway, saying, while this is a yearly tradition, the need is even greater during this pandemic.
This is the kind of collaboration we need in 2020. When the demand is higher than ever, we need folks to come together, leverage their collective resources to have more impact in the community. As you see by the lined up cars this morning, there's a lot of need out there. That's why I'm glad that they're being efficient today and working collaboratively.
About 950 families were given a turkey, fixings for Christmas dinner, and toys for their children. The Northeast is blanketed in snow after the first major snowstorm of the season. Nearly 40 inches of snow was dumped on Binghamton, New York as of this morning. A National Weather Service spokesperson said the storm sets a new 2-day snowfall record. And of course, it's a much different winter here at home where there's a chance we could see some rain. Melissa Constanzer has your forecast.
After cold fronts work through the area, we still have some of those gusty winds through the overnight and actually maybe even a bit into tomorrow through some of the mountains. But overall, this is nothing we can't deal with, and it's really a quiet pattern right into the weekend, which looks pretty nice for us, especially if you like the mild times. What's kicked off the winds? Well, again, cold front slid through. There's a little bit of energy, though, high up in the sky, still through the interior west, and that's what's kind of given us some of the gusty times. It's created closer to the ground this north to south flow and northeasterly flow that's really kept some of those breezes up. So something to watch out for tonight, though. Overall, again, it's a pretty quiet night. Couple clouds out there as we hit the 20s in Mount Laguna. Meanwhile, Ramona coming in at 31 and Borrego Springs 43 for your low. As we venture into Friday, tomorrow, high pressure builds in. That storm system is moving out of the Colorado Rockies, leaving us quiet and dry. So those winds, if we have any, will be weakening. Temperatures back into the mid-60s, pretty typical for this time of year. San Diego coming in at 67 and Mount Laguna 55 for your high. We venture into the weekend. It's dry, it's seasonable. All the activity will be in the Pacific Northwest, so we will not be looking at any changes really in our weather other than climbing temperatures climbing back through the 60s and into the lower 70s by Sunday towards the coast. So it is kind of a warmer trend coming towards us as we keep things quiet, dry. A few more clouds, though, venturing in towards the start of next work week. The interior here, inland, I should say, coming in the 70s, and as we go into the next week here, which I believe is the holiday week, believe it or not, hanging out in the 60s towards the mountains, at least to start off things. And then towards the deserts, temperatures remaining in the 70s next couple of days. Again, lots of sunshine to come. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
For the second year in a row, more people left California than moved here. The result was a net loss of 135,000 people. As Valina Jones reports, some former Californians say fire insurance costs and politics drove them out of the state.
If you're seeing more for sale signs, you're not alone.
I've never seen people leave, California like this.
Kelly Griggs, owner of Navigate Realty, says with home values rising, her clients in El Dorado County are packing up for a few reasons.
We have a lot of sellers who are seeing what is happening in the market and they want to take advantage of that, along with the combination of really high fire insurance rates.
Devastating flames throughout the state are changing the landscape, with homeowners in the foothills no longer wanting to be in the line of fire, cashing out.
That's a pretty hard pill to swallow, especially when they say automatically overnight, here, you have to pay $500 more a month.
Ryan and Robin Abear are leaving their Placerville home this month to head to Tennessee after their fire insurance went from $900 to $6,200 a year.
4 times the amount of land for half the price.
Former residents say politics are also driving them across state lines.
It seems like there are a lot of conservatives in California, but our voices really, truly were not being heard.
The county is typically known as a more conservative area. 53% of the county voted for President Trump compared to 34% of Californians statewide. The Palmers say they moved to Tennessee for their kids.
And it's opening up more opportunities for growth and opportunities for our children's future.
Well, someone out, Griggs says it's not stopping their homes from flying off the market.
The people who are coming from the Bay Area are not as concerned. Obviously, they feel like they're, winning the lottery, getting a home at these prices.
That was Valina Jones reporting. Mortgage rates dropped to another record low last week. Freddie Mac says the average interest rate on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage dropped to 2.67%. That's the lowest level in the history of the survey, which goes back nearly a half-century. It comes as the Federal Reserve said it would hold interest rates near zero. The chief economist at Realtor.com says soaring buyer demand is keeping home sales at their highest pace in more than 15 years. Today marks 117 years since the Wright brothers made the first powered flight. And the San Diego Air and Space Museum ran an exact replica of the engine the brothers invented at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. The museum's president says Orville and Wilbur Wright's inventions set in motion all the world's amazing accomplishments in aviation and space exploration. Back in 1983, there weren't many places to get sushi in San Diego. But that changed thanks to one woman, a recent transplant from Japan at that point. Now, 37 years later, the woman who began the Sushi deli restaurant is retiring. KPBS reporter John Carroll explains why customers and employees alike will miss her.
It has been 37 years and 6 months, so I'm 64 years old.
Hiroe Otake has a lot of help these days at her 2 sushi deli restaurants. But 37 years and 6 months ago, in 1983, it was just her. She'd come to San Diego a couple of years earlier after meeting a couple visiting Tokyo who owned a car dealership in Encinitas. But the car business wasn't for her. She wanted to open a restaurant, but she knew it would be a challenge in the fast food-loving U.S.
They start knowing about sushi, and I wanted to try a restaurant, see how it works.
But initially, Otake hedged her culinary bets.
So I started selling both sushi and sandwiches. That's why we named it Sushi Deli. I named it Sushi Deli.
To Otake's pleasant surprise, the sushi sold much better than the sandwiches, so the sandwiches went, but the name stayed. And back then, she did everything.
Making sushi, serving, and dishwashing, and cleaning a restaurant.
Business was good at her first location downtown, so Otake began bringing on employees, but there were hurdles along the way. Her first landlord filed bankruptcy, and she had to move. Then, in 2001, the owner of the San Diego hotel, where her restaurant was at the time, showed up at the restaurant and shut off the water right during the lunch rush.
And they told us to leave a building immediately because the building condition was extremely dangerous.
Otake soldiered on. She found another location downtown. But in 2005, she found out the owner of the building sold it without telling the tenants. They all had to get out. But only a couple of weeks after that, she relocated to the restaurant's current location in the Spreckles Theater building. She recently sold that one. Now, Otake owns the Mission Hills location, Sushi Deli 1, and Sushi Deli 3 in Kearny Mesa.
No one even compares to the way that Hiroe runs this company.
Would you like your copy of the receipt?
Mickey Holmes has worked for Sushi Deli, as she says, on and off for the last 4 years. To hear her tell it, it's easy to see why employees here love Otake so much.
She will come out on the floor and she will bust tables. She will answer the phone, she'll take orders. She, even for at the end of the year, she gives us all such generous bonuses.
Holmes has worked in other restaurants, both here and in L.A. She says there's simply no place like Sushi Deli, and it's all because of the woman that started it all.
She wants us to be here. She really cares about us. And that is something that I have never experienced anywhere else.
Holmes says it's not about profit for Hiroe Otake. Never has been.
I feel so loved here, and we're going to miss her so much.
Hiroe Otake's last day will be December 31st. In her retirement, she says she plans to do quite a bit of traveling, including, when the pandemic is over, going to Japan to see her 94-year-old mother. In Mission Hills, John Carroll, KPBS News.
The San Diego State football team season is over. Head coach Brady Hoke announced he has taken SDSU out of bowl consideration, even though they are eligible for an 11th consecutive season. The Aztecs end with a 4-4 record, including a 4-2 record in Mountain West play. Hoke says many of his players have not seen their parents since May and wants to give them the opportunity to go home. And here's a recap of today's top story. Restaurants across San Diego are reopening to diners. It comes after a Superior Court judge ruled yesterday that 2 strip clubs could remain open and operate despite the most recent COVID-19 shutdown orders from the state. Today, the judge clarified that all businesses that provide restaurant services are included in that order. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria says the city is working closely with the county and state to determine the implications of the ruling. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.